I think this is especially true for men, but I know that scientifically it's true for men and for women. But what are some of the experiences you've had, and just some of the science behind the impact of our physical health on our mental health? So things like exercise, how much does diet and nutrition impact our mental health, our rest and our sleep? I think these are again things that I think sometimes we don't acknowledge or address. And I think especially the worst of psychology can just go again straight to medicine and pharmaceuticals, when it's like, okay, let's take a little bit of a stock of this person is only surviving on potato chips and soda, and they're sleeping for 4 hours a night after scrolling their phone and playing video games until 1 a.m. That's probably having an impact on some of the stress we're experiencing as well, and our ability to manage it. So how do you kind of to find the balance of those things, and what's the impact on the body, on the mind?
Oh yeah, good question. It made me think of my mom. My mom's a great lady, a wonderful woman, and she never finished high school, let alone went to college, and would often say to me, Anthony, you got your PhD, from school and stuff. I got my PhD from living life. And so much of like your question to me is based on just common sense that my mom taught me and that moms all over the world have taught their children.
Hmm.
You need to eat your vegetables. You need to eat your vegetables and have a good diet because it's good for you. Like you don't need some highfalutin PhD to kind of tell you that, and for us to know that. Same thing with exercise. My mom, my parents, very much valued physical activity. We always played sports, football, basketball, baseball, cross country, golf, hockey, you name it, because, we needed to be active. We needed to be exercising, especially boys, but certainly, as a father of four girls, I pretty much have the same parenting philosophy with them as well. And so you just, you can observe the goodness from those basics in life, diet, exercise. And then it's really not surprising that the science also speaks to these truths. You know, um, there's some studies out there that find that, um, you know, running 3 days a week has the same impact, if not more, on depressive feelings as the leading antidepressant. Um, and so
Wow.
it's common sense meeting, the psychological sciences. It just kind of further supports, these things that we've known for a long time, but people do need to hear them, and learn about them in different ways nowadays.
Yeah, and that sparked something else in me too, that reminds me of scripture. I believe it's Romans 7, where St. Paul says, I do the things that I hate doing, and I don't do the things that I know I should be doing. And I
Hmm.
think that is so real to human existence. I'll never forget being in college and reading that and being like, this is me. Like St. Paul and I are, I'm living his life right now of just everything that I know I shouldn't be doing, I'm doing. Everything I know I should be doing, not everything, but a lot of what I know I should be doing, I'm not doing it. And so, what is some of the reasons behind that? Because obviously, yeah, you can witness this. You do see that healthy people generally are happier and they're living more fulfilled lives. But we still have insane obesity rates in the United States. We still are eating a lot of junk. I am fully aware of this stuff, right? My wife is crunchy, self-described crunchy, and very into non-toxic living and those sorts of things, which I think have been really helpful. But both of us still have a sweet tooth. We still go to more desserts than we should, and we work out less than we should. So what is some of the reason behind that? What are some of the mindset, and do you think, like, blockers in our decision making, or issues with our decision making or thinking, that prevent us from just doing some of these simple things that we know we should be doing but aren't doing, and vice versa?
Yeah, whenever I talk to people that I work with in my clinical practice, one of the things I always ask them is, how much are you exercising? And the most common response I get to that question is, well, here's what I'm trying to do. And I say, well, just wait 1 second. I didn't ask you what you're trying to do. I'm asking you what you actually are doing when it comes to exercise. Um, and I think
Yep.
what that little kind of subtle shift in the response tells me is that, basically people can just like talk their way out of engaging in things like exercise, eating right for lots of different reasons. It's a little bit of a built-in defense mechanism.
Hmm.
Well, I'm trying to do this, or maybe I'll start tomorrow, or it wasn't so bad today. I know I
Yep.
need to, and then they make a little joke a bit out of it, and kind of lightens the mood around it. But I try to get to like
Yeah.
behaviors,
Yep.
like what are you doing,
What's
and if
actually
you're not,
happening?
yeah, what's actually happening. And then we could talk about that, and then we could talk about like how you can get engaged in like the actual behaviors that are healthy, for you to do. I'm a big believer in this concept called like behavioral momentum. I don't know if you've heard of it before.
Mm-mm.
So behavioral momentum is basically like once you start doing something positive, like you're trained for a marathon, so you start running, every day or 4 days a week, then you have like momentum towards like this good set of behaviors, these healthy set of behaviors. It starts to take on a little bit of energy and force of its own. You then wake up and you want to do the running instead of like forcing yourself or gritting and bear it. But behavioral momentum could also work in the opposite direction, right? If you start engaging in a lot of negative behaviors, unhealthy behaviors, then that can create its own momentum. And you just kind of
Right.
keep slipping more and more in that unhealthy direction.
The downward spiral.
Correct. Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
So
that
I'm a big
totally makes
momentum
sense.
guy. I'm a big momentum guy, and I try to check my momentum, and then I try to check that with the people that I'm working with as well too.
Yeah, that's super important. I love the digging deeper into what are you actually doing, not what do you want to do. It reminded me of this story when I had a friend who was a seminarian at the time, and the Monsignor, who was director of the seminary, needed to lose weight. He was pretty overweight, and he was going to his doctor, and the doctor's like, Monsignor, seriously, you have to lose weight. Like, you need to start exercising. And so he comes back next time. He's like, have you been exercising? Yes. And they do that basically monthly. And he's like, a few, 3 or 4 months in, he's like, you haven't lost any weight. Have you actually been exercising? He says, yes, I have. And he finally says, well, what have you been doing? And he says, well, a few times a week, I do 5 push-ups and 5 sit-ups, and I walk around the building. And he's like, that is not exercise. Like, that does not qualify for what you need to be doing to lose, 80 pounds or whatever he needed to drop. So that's always important, I think, to dig deep into. Like, everybody has this idea of what we're shooting for when it comes to fitness or nutrition, and what are you actually doing? What's actually getting done week to week is really important. And it's just interesting thinking about that. Even just the people that I've known, whether it's online or people I've gone to in person, or just like researching therapists or counselors, you don't see a lot of overweight counselors. It's kind of like doctors, right? Like, you just don't see medical doctors as well. Like, you don't see a lot of people that are overweight in those fields. And I think the reason is often because you recognize the relationship between those things, right? You know the deeply the importance of them, and it's not that they don't exist, obviously, but it's pretty rare to find somebody who's substantially overweight that's a therapist or things like that.
Well, yeah, that's a good observation. And I know just from my own personal point of view, like I try to be like a good role model to the people I work with, like I
Right.
try to walk the talk, with them, because there would be quite an incongruence if I'm trying to work with someone around some of these kind of concerns and difficulties, and they look at me and are kind of like, well, what about you?
Right.
That none of this seems to be working for you. So, I don't go too extreme in terms of like self-disclosure with the patients I work with, but I do try to set a certain tone of, all right, well, I'm working on these things as well, or I have worked on them. I want to show you that I have walked the walk here, not just talking the talk.